we're back. So welcome back to the Fire Up Connect Radio Talk Show. I'm your host, James Foo Torres, but you can call me Foo. And now I have the VP of Technology and CEO of Proshark, Joel Phillips. Hey, Joel, how are you?
Hey, Foo, how you doing today? I'm good.
I'm glad that they're good. I'm good too. I'm feeling good, and feeling hopeful that we're gonna have some good knowledge coming from you. Technology, hot topic right now, right? Like all these things. So I can't wait from hearing from you. But first, like I know you, but the audience doesn't know you. So if you can quickly introduce yourself and say like what you do for the Strategic Advisor Board and also for your own company, ProShark.
Sure, happy to. So you said we're going to have some good content. So that means we're going to have a guest speaker other than me. Good.
Oh my
No,
God.
I appreciate it. My name is Joel Phillips. I am the VP of Technology at the Strategic Advisor Board. That means that I handle pretty much everything that there is to do with technology, website, functionality, automation, systems, etc. ProShark is a digital marketing agency. It's also a SaaS development agency, software as a service, where we're developing a marketing platform. But from a digital marketing perspective, we handle pretty much everything to do with a digital footprint. That's everything from websites, system automation. You've got all of your campaigns, your emailing, any digital channel. So really everything to do with your digital footprint.
Awesome. And that's one reason that I really like what you do and what we've been connecting so much is because like having the digital footprint and then having PR, which is mainly digital nowadays, right? So
Right.
that's why like we talk a lot because we have a lot of similarities and stuff, and we'll talk a lot more because like my website is coming up very soon, so
It
I'm
is.
excited for that.
Yeah, and it's looking really good. So the yeah, and I'm sorry, you've got questions for me, but I mean,
It's
one
fine.
thing that I wanted to start off with is people don't realize the importance of digital footprint, especially since the pandemic and everybody was sent home and everybody started doing business from their homes and their remote offices and stuff. It's become such a huge, I mean, even before it was big, but now it's just the majority of the marketplace. A lot of companies are staying remote because they find that there's a lot more productivity at home. A lot of companies are focusing all of their efforts online because they see that it's a much more efficient channel, even if it's become a much noisier channel. So
Definitely. And that's, it's okay if like you want to set the tone for something, feel free because that was super important. It's super relevant right now. So thanks you for doing that. And I think it's a great segue too for like the question of like, giving your expertise, like and the things that you were just talking about. What are some tips or some advice that you would like to give business owners that they can take action on right now, especially with all these privacy things and that are happening? So just
right.
enlighten us with some of that knowledge that you have.
Well, I don't know about enlightened, but what I will say is this. So with the change in the way business is being done, a lot of things are happening in the back end that a lot of people don't see. One is, let's look at the way, we'll use the G word, Google. Let's look at the way that they're handling websites and ranking. The number of websites that have come online is just overwhelming. And so how do people ask, well, what does Google do to rank me number one on their search engine if somebody searches for a term? Used to be you put in a keyword and that would get you to the top of the ranking for that keyword. Then give me a phrase and that would get you to the top of the ranking for the phrase. Now it's changed where they are no longer ranking just on keyword, they're ranking on relevance. And what relevance means is that they're taking your website, they're taking the content of your website, they're comparing it to the visitors that visit your website, they're comparing it to the competitors. Their algorithms have become so complex that nobody, including themselves, is able to keep up with it. This last year, within the last 12 months, they've had 3 major updates to their algorithms. And part of that, and without getting off into the weeds, I don't want to get off into the weeds, but part of that has to do with the privacy changes that we were talking about. and it has to do with the ability for just everyday business guide to get their site ranked or even relevant on Google. So there, I don't want to say tips and tricks. It's understanding that the digital landscape is changing and that the way that to get noticed, to get above the noise is different than it used to be. So one actionable tip is to go through your website, make sure that it's clean, contemporary, make sure that it's focused from a content perspective, make sure that it's got relevant information for your industry and for the industries that you want to specialize in. That'd be one tip. The second is your digital footprint. Your online perception is everything now. It used to be that people would search for your business, you do advertising, and this plays really well into the public awareness question. So we'll get into that because I know that's a really important topic, and it's one that I enjoy discussing with you. But the digital footprint that a company has, people, there's so much information out there that people used to say, okay, let me go through the yellow pages, search for a company. Now you can't because there's so many companies out there that offer services. How do you find the right one? Reviews. You find it through warm referrals. You find it through searching and then researching a company, because you have to eliminate some list of the company before you get to the ones that you are going to make a purchase decision with. So make sure that your digital footprint is cleaned up and ready to be presented to the world. And that includes all of your reviews, that includes public awareness, that includes every touch point that you have out in the marketplace. 5 to 7 people was 5 to 7 touch points. In other words, every time we touch a customer was the number that we used to use for getting somebody to take action. If I sent them 5 emails or had them visit a website plus emails, if I had them do those 5 to 7 things, then they could say, okay, I like this company, I know who they are, and I'll move forward with them. Now it's 27 touch points as the average before a customer will make a decision whether or not to even reach out to you as a business. That includes reviews, that includes your website, that includes any digital information they have. All of those things they'll take a look at before they even decide whether or not they want to do business with you.
Awesome. Like that's something that I didn't know about, like, doing the not 27 touches now. I mean, it kind of, now that I think about it, it does make sense because now people have to see you so many times because like social media and everything. So that's something that is very important, that you have to kind of be almost omnipresent like nowadays.
You do. And public awareness, amazing. Public awareness plays a really big role in that touch point, because public awareness is how you go out and touch many people. But we'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure.
Yes. And like just like kind of to like touch in that, like I guess it's just your tips and like public awareness, because you deal so much with that. It was kind of like so hand in hand. And I want to just kind of say this last thing, that is you to be omnipresent, like it's kind of like challenging, but at the same time, like thanks to technology, and then to also, if you can leverage press, and you can leverage, being like staying ahead of like Google, right? Like being able to have a website that loads fast, that can that has, that is contemporary, has all those stuff, combined with like, okay, like, is there also press talking about you, right? It's not like you're good at just getting yourself ranked higher, but also like there's other people talking about you. And like you say, like reviews are great, and a way to kind of have like a review from somebody that most people know and trust is by getting, into the publications, and like podcast, TV, and stuff like that. So with that being said, we kind of segue into what the question of in regards to public awareness. What has been the strategy or the multiple strategies that you've been using in the last 3 to 6 months that you have identified to be the most effective ones, right? In this new, policy changes and privacy and all that stuff that's happening. So what do you have to identify?
Well, okay, so that's actually a really good question, and it's actually a very complex question that I'll try and boil it down in just a few minutes. But the privacy changes, and let's just take one quick second and look at privacy changes. iOS came out with the privacy changes that means that certain types of advertising are now cut off to iOS phones. But a lot of people think that Apple, when they came out with these privacy changes, they were doing it to protect data. That's not the case at all. They're doing it to control the data, because now imagine this, third-party advertising went way down. Use of the Apple platform for advertising went way up when that happened. Well, guess what? Google's right on the tails, and they're doing the same thing by 2023. So that means that what businesses have to do to get seen, to get noticed, is they have to develop communities. And these communities are who they're going to interact with. They're the same thing as iOS. It's a community of people that interact with your company. And there's all of these communities that interact with each other. But again, I want to try and be really succinct on this. So when it comes to public awareness, getting known, getting seen, that's critical. I mean, that's getting seen across the broadest platforms that you can but it's critical that you do that, but it's also one part of it. So what we've focused on is we utilize services to get us seen on platforms, but we also have what we call PR or awareness campaigns behind that, where we take those publications that we get into, and we are now focusing on outbound channels, including email, including social media, because those pieces are evergreen for the most part, to where I can always refer back to them and they give me authority in the community. So yes, it's great to have that piece. It's a necessity in business, but then I have to be able to continue to communicate that, because making that broadcast wide is what's most important. So I hope
100%.
that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And like just like a takeaway that I got is that it's not just getting into like either like in the media or in Google or in social media. It's not just getting there, right? It's effectively distributing the things that you're putting
Yes.
out there and reference them, like cross-reference, right? Like, oh, you got a press release or you got an article or you got a podcast. Now, like, can I cross-reference this to email too? So it's not like, oh, I went there and I'm just gonna sit down here and wait for somebody to call me and that's it, right? Like, that's just not very smart. You should be proactive with it and then take action and like, okay, I have this now, how can I leverage this? And can I leverage multiple different ways, right? Like, oh, I got a little snippet of this in social media, but then I can put like the whole thing in my YouTube, or then I can have a value email or storytelling email. And then, oh, if you want to hear more about this topic, here's my recent podcast, here's my recent article, stuff like that. Or here's my recent post in LinkedIn that you were like just talking about this more in depth, and maybe you have like a LinkedIn article or something, right? Like there's all different ways that you can go about this, but the important is to try to be omnipresent and be and have purpose of like, okay, I'm not just putting it out there just to put it out there. I have the purpose initially in how am I gonna connect it with all the other things that I'm doing. So that's my takeaway.
You're exactly right. And I'll just say one last thing, then I'll be done, is that by doing so, you have to add value to your clients. And this is one way to add value. How can I help my clients by broadcasting my information? And how can I give them value to the sense that they would want to call me as an authority figure and let me help them? So
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. That this was great. There's a lot, like I really like this segment. Like I'm all about technology and digital footprint. So that's why I like
yep.
it so much. So thanks for sharing this. This is super valuable. And like we were just saying, we're gonna practice what we preach and you're gonna
We
see
are.
it on LinkedIn.
Well,
So,
and it's always great. I really appreciate you having me on. It's always great talking to you, Foo. So
yeah,
whatever.
thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk again very soon, most
I'm
likely
sure we
maybe
will.
next week. So thanks for being here, and yeah, so just now we're gonna go to commercials once again, and next I'm gonna have my own segment when I'm gonna be talking about public awareness and NFTs, which is something that's a hot topic right now that not a lot of people know. So I kind of want to bring that back and give my experience that I've gained like in this space. So we will be right back.